the best horror movie in 2001 that you might not have heard of. So I'm not going to be talking about the more popular horror movies of 2001. So if you don't recognize or you haven't seen or heard of some of these, there's a reason for that. I'm trying to get some unknown horror movies that you probably haven't heard of. So let's get into it. At number 10, we have Spirit. And I didn't really expect much from it, but it has Elisabeth Moss, a very young Elisabeth Moss, in the haunted house movie that I think if you give it a chance, if you watch it on Tubi, you just might have fun. It's not the bloodiest or the scariest, but it feels like a TV show that kind of delivers. So check it out on the streaming services. It is entertaining and it's fun seeing Elisabeth Moss really young in her early days in this sort of like made for TV like horror that feels like the episode of like Touched by an Angel. Give it a chance. At number nine, we have Lou Diamond Phillips in the cheesy but fun action horror called Route 66. Now, you have Lou Diamond Phillips, you have Lori Petty, you had Deep Throat from X-Files, and also the Commissioner from 21 Jump Street, rolled up in this sort of like kind of fun. They're in the desert, and the zombie ex-convict chain gang guys are chasing them. It's really fun. Give it a chance. Very ham-fisted. You know, this movie almost makes me want to see Lou Diamond Phillips come back, you know, as an action star. I know this is, you know, like 20 years ago, but, you know, I really like Lou Diamond Phillips in this movie, and it's got some cheesy action moments, and it's, you know, the zombies makes that horror. Route 66. Check it out. At number 8, we have the director Reanimator, Stuart Gordon. He's always been a fan of Poe and Lovecraft, and this one, he brings out his Lovecraft chops in the classic story of Cthulhu. Now, this movie, Dagon, doesn't have Cthulhu, but it is the classic story of people who got drifted and shipwrecked onto an island of fish people, which is the beginnings of the Cthulhu curse and story. But it's very, I love the practical effects, I love the fish people and the lore of Cthulhu in this movie. Even though we don't get the spaghetti Cthulhu in this, but you know, the lore is there, and Stuart Gordon, director of Reanimator, always delivers the goods. And I had a lot. It was a fun movie that's underrated, and I really wish more people talked about this one because big fan of Reanimator, big fan of the Cthulhu kind of mythos. Check it out. Check out Dagon. Number 7. We have Snoop Dogg in the horror movie Bones. Now, urban horror. This is one of the urban horror movies that kind of gets dismissed. Everyone talks about Tales from the Hood. Everyone talks about Leprechaun in the Hood. You know, but I think Bones is the underdog urban horror movie that should be more talked about. You know, Snoop Dogg tries to create his own version of Candyman and Pinhead rolled up into this urban spook man. You know, how there's more killjoys than Bones is beyond me, because Bones was a good, you know, I liked it when they showed us the flashbacks to the 70s and he's a pimp, and then we flash forward and he's like this people going into his old pimp house, crack house, you know, killing. You had Foxy Brown, Pam Greer's in it, you know, Catherine Isabel's in it. We should have got more Bones. Check it out at number 7. Number 6, we have Soul Survivors. Now, this movie's a little bit disjointed, but it feels like kind of like a mixture of I Know What You Did Last Summer and Final Destination. Just kind of put in a blender and he just kind of squirted it out and just poured it out into a movie. It's very 2000s, very early, like new metal, like feeling, music video feeling. But it's very slick. And my only complaint is there's not enough Elizabeth Dutcher, and I think Wes Bentley just kind of like bugs me out, man. He just bugs me out. But other than, you know, all that, I definitely think Soul Survivor is underrated, and more people should see this movie because it was one of the better horror movies of 2001, and a lot of people just kind of whatever, there's better movies, but and then was there? It was a really light year for horror. I had to dig a lot to find some really eccentric horror movies, and one of the ones that stuck out was Soul Survivors, and it is pretty good. So it also reminded me of the Butterfly Effect. Number 5, we have Guillermo del Toro biggest first hit, and that's The Devil's Backbone. I know he did Chronos, and I know he did Mimic, but this movie was The Devil's Backbone. Show people this guy could be up there with Tim Burton. This guy could be up there with Dario Argento and John Carpenter. This is the movie that put him in, and it's back during a revolution, and it takes place at a orphanage, and there's a ghost trying to tell this new orphan of a murder that happened, and he's showing him clues, and he's seeing who murdered the orphan, and meanwhile there's this war going on. So there's a lot going on here. The chemistry with the kids is a little, just kind of not clicking. But stylistically, this shows the goods that Guillermo del Toro has. And it's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of him. The Devil's Back. Here's my Diamond in the Rough. At number 4, Wolf Girl. So, a carnival rolls up. It's being ran by none other by Tim Curry and Rocky Horror Picture, and he's this carnival ranger, and he's got the fat lady, he's got the small people, he's got the people with the missing the arms and legs, and then the main feature of the movie is our wolf girl, who's covered in hair. She's just a normal girl. She just has a lot of hair, but she meets a boy who's been bullied, and they start getting bullied by these small town punk kid, and this boy that falls in love with her also has a mom who develops this who can hair remove experimental hair removal, but it goes bad, and it actually makes her into a werewolf, and then she starts getting back at the bully. Awesome movie. I love the ending. It's a whole movie is. I totally flew over my radar. Check out Wolf Girl. Big thumbs up. Huge fan of Takashi Miike and, Ichi the Killer audition, but don't sleep on The Happiness of Kakuman. I just felt I just love this movie, and it's just a really great movie. This might be my favorite movie by him. It's about a hotel that's doing really poorly, and then they finally start getting visitors, and they start dying, and it's just it's very dark comedy. They start singing, and it's a musical. It's a weird musical. I'm not a fan of musicals, but this, I was getting into the tune. The dark comedy hits well, and I just, what we have here is a very underrated movie, known for is more bizarre movies, and this one is very bizarre, and I was just laughing throughout this whole movie. It's definitely an awesome movie that you need to see as soon as possible. Number 2, we have Joyride with Paul Walker and Steve Zahn. They're driving around the highways, and Paul Walker's driving to his girlfriend, Lily Sabowski, and they start getting stalled by this truck, Duel style. And I think, it's not better than Duel, but the tension's there. And when you have a movie with, a small cast, you gotta keep the audience guessing of the danger zones. And I feel it was put together like a Hitchcock thriller and Duel. So you had those elements, and you had this movie that feels very, of the times 2001. You get that vibe there, but this was a home run, as far as thriller goes. So I think Joyride at number 2 is very, very fair, and I don't think it was, since I know I was trying to keep this list with a lot of more unknowing. Joyride, kind of isn't really talked about as much as some of the other movies from this time. It is mentioned, but let's get to our number 1 movie, Frailty. Bill Paxton, grandiose open of him batting 900, hitting the best version of his. He goes back to the 80s, and he gets the time right, and he's in this movie as a father who he feels he gets a vision, and he's like, I spoke with God, kid, and he told me we had to kill demons in this world. And one kid believes him, the other doesn't believe him that much. Meanwhile, we're in the present time with Matthew McConaughey, who's confessing, who's his dad, who's played by Bill Paxton, about how this all went down. He's confessing to a cop that, I'm the killer, and I was part of these killers that happened back in the 80s. And meanwhile, he's confessing. We see how Bill Paxton, the dad, went through with these killings, and I just feel like there's a lot of emotion involved in this movie. It's the best horror movie of 2001, and definitely check out Thriller. And that concludes the horror movies of 2001. I'll see you for 2002.